the voice in the vents. When Claire first stepped into her new apartment, she felt a wave of relief. The small, one-bedroom unit wasn't perfect. The floors creaked, the walls bore faint cracks, and the fixtures were outdated. But it was hers. Affordable, close to campus, and quiet. Exactly what she needed to focus on her studies. The first night passed uneventfully. The occasional groan of the old building settling startled her a few times, but she told herself it was normal. She fell asleep to the hum of the radiator and the distant murmur of a neighbor's TV. By the second night, however, the quiet began to feel oppressive. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Claire heard it for the first time. A faint whisper coming from the air vent above her bed. She froze, straining her ears. The sound was so soft she couldn't make out any words. It could have been her imagination, or perhaps the neighbors talking. Right? The next morning, she mentioned it to the building superintendent, who ignored her and said, "These vents sound funny. Probably someone in the unit next door. Nothing to worry about." Claire tried to believe him, but the whispers continued. Each night they seemed to grow clearer. On the fourth night, she was certain she heard her name. "Claire, Claire, can you hear us?" Her heart pounded as she pulled the covers over her head, trying to block out the sound. Sleep eluded her that night, and by morning, her nerves were frayed. She told herself it was stress, a trick of her overtired mind, but deep down, she knew something wasn't right. By the end of the week, Claire couldn't take it anymore. She decided to investigate. Dragging a chair beneath the vent in her bedroom, she climbed up and peered inside. Dust and darkness greeted her. Nothing out of the ordinary. She even waved her phone's flashlight around, but the beam revealed only cobwebs and rusted metal. Frustrated, she knocked on her neighbors' doors, asking if anyone else had heard strange noises. Most ignored her, but one person, an elderly woman named Mrs. Harper, gave her a peculiar warning. "This building holds onto its secrets," Mrs. Harper said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Don't dig too deep," the words stayed with Claire, haunting her almost as much as the whispers. That night, the voices grew louder, more insistent. They no longer whispered her name. They spoke in fragmented sentences, phrases that made her blood run cold. "We're not alone. They'll never find us. Help us, Claire." She pressed her hands over her ears, but it was no use. The voices seemed to come from everywhere. The vent above her bed, the one in the bathroom, even the tiny grate near the kitchen floor. It was as if the walls themselves were speaking to her. Desperate for answers, Claire called the building's maintenance worker. When he arrived the next morning, she explained everything, half expecting him to laugh her off. But to her surprise, he nodded thoughtfully. "Could be a critter stuck in the ductwork," he said. "Or maybe a faulty fan. Let me take a look." Claire followed him from vent to vent as he inspected each one, finding nothing unusual. But when he reached the vent in her bedroom, his expression changed. He frowned, unscrewing the grate, and reached inside. His hand emerged holding something unexpected, an old, dusty tape recorder. The two of them stared at it in disbelief. The maintenance worker pressed play, and a distorted recording crackled to life. Whispers filled the room, the same whispers Claire had been hearing night after night. Her stomach twisted. Someone had planted the device in the vent. But who? And why? The maintenance worker ignored it as a prank and left, taking the recorder with him. For the first time in days, Claire felt a glimmer of relief. It was over. It had to be. That night, she climbed into bed, exhausted but hopeful. The apartment was finally silent. She closed her eyes, letting the quiet wash over her, until she heard it. The faint creak of metal. Her eyes snapped open. She turned her head slowly toward the vent. The grate, which had been securely screwed back in place, was slightly open. A chilly air blew across the room, making her breath freeze. And then, from the darkness of the vent, a voice whispered directly into her ear, "You found the tape. but we're still here. Who or what was in the vents all along? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated. Until the next video, stay curious, stay awake, and most importantly, stay ready. Thanks for watching